In Tokyo, around Shinjuku, one of those old, gaudy, neon nightlife districts, there's a little place, a very little place, called the Golden Gai. Gai spelt G-A-I. It's a place that was still somewhat guarded by the locals against intrusion in those days, back then in the 80s sometime. Long ago, I don't quite remember when. Guarded, although they were not actually unfriendly. They just wanted to keep it to themselves, which was the attraction. The clubby feel, the open secrecy of it. They just didn't push it. You found it or you didn't. The Golden Gai is a small, tightly packed couple of acres of very tiny bars. Tiny is relative, of course, but these are microscopic beyond argument. Some are just a few feet square, and the Japanese have small feet. Some are so cramped that only about a dozen people can squeeze in, standing up. There's almost no room to turn. It's degree of difficulty drinking. You have no idea where the bartenders are producing the drinks and snacks from. Their cheeks? You couldn't swing a mouse in here. Some bars are just 2 tables with about, 30 people sardined around them. And they smoke in Tokyo, remember? Even today. But then, it was compulsory. Back then, you can imagine what a slice of the air was like. It was pliable. But no matter how small, all the bars managed to make money because the Japanese are not just drinkers. They are sincere drunks. The joke is that their Shinto belief says that the liver is evil and must be punished. They all become, very quickly, quite spectacularly drunk. Hammered, I believe, is the technical term. Fortunately, in the Golden Gai, there is also no room to swing a punch. So any potential drunken brawl is settled by thumb wrestling or merely remaining jolly and drinking more. In the Golden Gai, some of the bars are so close together, you think it's a double door painted 2 colors. But no, they open onto completely different environments, and amazingly different they are, too. In a few steps, you can see 20 businessmen quietly speed-shooting thimbles of sake. A bunch of bearded beatniks huddled over an argument about, acoustic versus electric. No-neck, tattooed yakuzas planning God knows what. Overdressed cross-dressers, carousing karaokes, Elvis impersonators, Martians, lizards, carnivorous plants. You get the picture. All drunk. All held up only by the fact that there's no room to fall down. So it was after a similarly tight experience that I lurched into the night air, feeling pretty tight myself, as the sudden novelty of oxygen returned a little blood to the alcohol stream. When suddenly, there he was, on the empty boulevard, a ghost from another century, as if in slow motion, so suspended in aspic is my memory of him. He was a young man of incredible power and grace, pulling a spectacularly tall black rickshaw. He was a world-class athlete, a sinewy lightweight, jogging effortlessly in an outfit from antiquity, some 17th century affair with buttons and beads. In stylish slow motion, it seemed like a bullet in a Matrix movie, flying slowly, silently across the screen, stage left to stage right. He was done up in full samurai era, top to bottom. His costume tight to his body like a fencer's, but black, like a ninja's. There were black, silent slippers on his feet, dark webbing wound around his calves, like bandages up to his knees. His tight tunic had a high Chinese collar, and on his head was a purple satin skull cap. Did he have a pigtail? I can't remember. I fancy he did have a pigtail. Well, he ought to have had a pigtail. Okay, so he had a pigtail. And he was high-stepping. He was bringing his knees up with every stride, showing off, like one of those dressage horses, but placing every footfall silently onto the slick macadam. It had been raining while I had been drinking. The street was now not just empty, but glossy, a black lacquer stage, reflecting this vision of a man from long ago, jogging lightly, almost as if restrained, as if holding himself back from the speed he could turn on if asked to. Looking neither to the left or to the right, disciplined, focused, professional, pulling the tall, high-sided black regal rickshaw that towered high behind him. He was showing off, but to whom? The streets were empty of all but me, but somebody was watching him. Somebody with a very critical eye was watching him from behind, through a thin slit in the black bamboo rickshaw blind that was pulled all the way down to hide her rather scandalous identity. I caught a glimpse. It was a geisha, a real full-on geisha, hidden from stares in her high-wheeled, shiny, royal ride from another time, another world, the floating world, as they call it here so enigmatically. Young, slim, and dainty as she no doubt was, she was a relic. What a sight. Oh, you may see this occasionally still in Kyoto, in that secret, stylized world, floating adrift from time, a world of millionaires and killers. But here, in terminally trendy Tokyo, in these high-tech times, I think not. This was something. It was the silence that was so remarkable and which made it so dreamlike. Not a sound issued from this wraith-like vision from a former time, a full geisha, hidden from public gaze in an aristocratic, high-wheeled rickshaw, an angel pulled by another angel on the devil's errand. Along that narrow silk rail, that long ago and forever confluence of art, sex, and power. Wow. The silence and the emptiness were impossible, eerie, slightly frightening. Who had emptied these streets? Who had stopped the traffic? Who had such juice, such pull? This was the center of Tokyo at 2 a.m. on a weekend. This was not the private, tree-lined approach to a shogun's castle, or some big shot of the current shogunate up there on a high balcony nearby, watching, making sure that his evening's tasty morsel was trotted home safely along the shiny black main road before he gave the subtle nod to change the traffic lights back to green again and allow back onto this major thoroughfare the hoi polloi in their vulgar Toyotas. Ever the romantic, I like to think there was. There could have been. There ought to have been. Okay, so there was. The athlete trotted away from me in silence, pulling the performer after him, taking her back to her handlers, to her masseurs, her coiffeurs, her dresser and undresser, her gift wrapper and unwrapper. And as she went by, the full elegance of her high and haughty conveyance was spotlit by the street lamps and the mirror pools of reflection as she splashed gently through them, one after the other, all the way down the boulevard. They passed her along, one to another, gliding her back into the myth that she came from, the smallest of smiles playing surely on her tiny scarlet rosebud mouth.